The hardest sound in my house wasn't an argument. It was silence. My phone still worked. My children still had my number. But week after week, neither of them called. For a long time, I told myself they were busy, ungrateful, or too wrapped up in their own lives. At 72, I finally understood the truth. They hadn't stopped loving me. They had stopped feeling safe with me. And the reason was hidden inside the way I spoke to them. My name is Thomas Bennett. I live in a small town outside Columbus, Ohio, with my wife, Ruth. We raised 2 children here. Claire is 42 now, and Daniel is 39. I used to say I was a good father because I never missed a payment, never walked away, and always had an answer. That last part was the problem. I always had an answer, even when nobody had asked me a question. The moment that finally opened my eyes began on November 24th, 2022. Thanksgiving. Claire arrived carrying a glass dish of lasagna because our grandson had decided he hated turkey. Daniel came late, still wearing his work jacket. Ruth had set out the cream-colored plates we used only on holidays. For the first 20 minutes, everything felt normal. Then Claire mentioned that she was considering leaving her job. She had been exhausted for months. She said she wanted work that left some energy for her family. I didn't ask what the job had been doing to her. I didn't ask what she needed. I leaned back and said, "Quitting when things get difficult is a habit you don't want to learn." The room changed. Claire looked at her plate. Her husband, Marcus, reached for her hand under the table. Ruth gave me the look she had given me 100 times, the one that meant, "Please stop." But I kept going. I reminded Claire how much her degree had cost. I listed the risks. I called it practical advice. Daniel tried to change the subject. He said he and his partner were thinking about moving closer to Cleveland. I laughed and asked whether they had considered the taxes, the commute, the housing market, and what would happen if the new job failed. Within 10 minutes, both of my children had offered me something tender, and I had treated each offering like a faulty plan at a business meeting. They left earlier than expected. At the front door, Claire hugged Ruth. She gave me a quick touch on the shoulder. Daniel said, "We'll talk soon." The red taillights disappeared down our street just after 8. I remember because the kitchen clock was 7 minutes slow, and I had been meaning to fix it. They did call again, just not the way they used to. Claire's Sunday calls became every other Sunday, then once a month. Daniel started sending short texts instead of talking. I noticed the distance, but I blamed the people creating it. On a yellow notepad beside the phone, I even marked the dates they contacted us. I thought I was measuring their neglect. I was really recording the consequences of my own behavior. Children don't stop calling in a single moment. They stop one guarded conversation at a time. I wish I could say I understood that quickly. I didn't. I complained to Ruth. I said young people had no loyalty. I said parents were valued only when someone needed money, a ride, or help repairing a sink. Ruth listened until I ran out of anger. Then she asked, "When they call, do you make their lives lighter or heavier?" I hated the question because I couldn't answer it honestly. So I dismissed it. I said families shouldn't be so sensitive. Ruth didn't argue. She picked up the yellow notepad, turned it over, and slid it back toward me. On the blank side, she said, I should write what Claire and Daniel might be feeling after a conversation with me. I wrote nothing. 3 months later, Claire left a voicemail. Her voice was calm, which somehow hurt more than anger. She said she needed some space. She said every conversation became a lesson, a correction, or a reminder of what she owed us. She didn't say I was a terrible father. She said she felt smaller after talking to me. I replayed that message once. Then I deleted it. For 2 days, I built my defense. I had paid for braces. I had worked overtime. I had driven through snowstorms to school events. I had fixed their cars, helped with rent, and kept every childhood drawing in a box above the garage. Surely all that proved my love. It did prove love. It did not prove that my love was easy to receive. That distinction took me almost another year to understand. In March 2024, I was cleaning the garage and found Daniel's first toolbox. It was blue, dented at one corner with his name written in black marker. I remembered giving it to him when he was 12. I also remembered taking the hammer from his hand because he wasn't holding it correctly. Then I remembered rebuilding his crooked birdhouse after he went inside. I had told that story for years as evidence that I taught him well. Sitting on the cold garage floor, I saw another version. A boy had wanted to show his father what he could make. His father had shown him all the ways it could be improved. Once that memory opened, others followed. Claire at 16, wearing a green dress she loved, and me asking whether it was too bright. Daniel at 23, excited about a used truck, and me listing everything wrong with the engine. Claire calling after a difficult day, and me interrupting before she had finished the second sentence. I had confused being needed with being close. If I could solve the problem, I had a role. If I could identify the risk, I felt useful. But my children weren't calling for an inspector. They were calling for their father. The next morning, I asked Ruth to sit with me at the kitchen table. I told her I wanted the truth, without protection. She took a long breath. Then she said, I listened for mistakes more carefully than I listened for pain. She said I turned help into a debt and worry into control. Worst of all, she said the family had learned to prepare before telling me anything. That sentence stayed with me. Imagine the people you loved rehearsing their lives before speaking to you. Imagine them removing the parts that might attract judgment. Eventually, there isn't much left to say. I wanted to call Claire immediately and explain myself. Ruth stopped me. If your first instinct is to explain, she said, you still think the main problem is that they misunderstood you. So I did something unfamiliar. I waited without punishing anyone for the waiting. I bought 2 plain cards from the pharmacy. No birthday message, no sentimental poem. I wrote each child a separate letter. I named specific moments. I did not include the word but. To Claire, I wrote that when she told me she was exhausted, I made her defend her choices instead of letting her be tired. I apologized for using money and sacrifice as proof that she owed me access. I told her she could decide when, how, or whether to respond. To Daniel, I wrote about the toolbox and the birdhouse. I said I had often taken over when he wanted me to notice his effort. I apologized for treating his adult decisions like applications that required my approval. I ended with one promise. If he called again, I would ask whether he wanted listening or advice. Claire called 19 days later. The conversation lasted 11 minutes. I know because I stared at the clock, afraid to fill 1 second too many. She told me about her new job. I felt 6 warnings rise in my throat. I swallowed every one. Then I said, "That sounds like a big change. How are you feeling about it?" There was a pause. Then she laughed softly and said, "That's new." It was not a magical reunion. She did not suddenly call every Sunday. Trust did not return because I had written one good letter. But the call ended without either of us feeling bruised. That was enough for a beginning. Daniel took longer. For 3 months, I sent one short message every few weeks. No guilt, no question marks demanding an answer. One photo of Ruth's tomato plants, one memory of a rainy camping trip, one sentence saying I hoped he and Lena were well. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang while I was tightening a loose cabinet hinge. Daniel's name appeared on the screen. He said his kitchen faucet was leaking and asked if I remembered the trick with the washer. The old version of me would have taken control. Instead, I asked, "Do you want me to talk you through it? Or do you want me to come over?" He said, "Talk me through it." We spent 20 minutes on that faucet and another 40 talking about nothing urgent, a dog in his neighborhood, the price of coffee, a movie he thought I would like. Ordinary conversation had never felt so precious. If your adult children have grown distant, this story is not proof that you caused everything. Families are complicated. There may be old conflicts, divided loyalties, harmful behavior, mental health struggles, or boundaries that must remain firm. Reconciliation is never owed, and contact should not be forced where there is abuse or danger. But if you are willing to examine your side, ask a harder question than, "Why don't they call me?" Ask, "What does it feel like to talk to me?" Do they expect curiosity or correction? Can they bring you unfinished decisions? Can they disagree without paying an emotional price? Can they share good news without watching you search for the flaw? Here are 5 small changes that helped me. First, stop keeping score. A calendar of missed calls will not create closeness. It will turn every conversation into a payment collected late. Second, apologize for a pattern, not just an incident. Name what you did, name the effect it may have had, and leave out your defense. An apology with a hidden argument is not an apology. It is a retrial. Third, ask permission before giving advice. I use one simple sentence now. Would you like me to listen, help you think, or offer an opinion? That question has saved me from many old mistakes. Fourth, respect the pace of repair. You may feel ready because you finally understand. The other person may need time because they have understood for years. Do not turn your breakthrough into their deadline. Fifth, become easier to tell the truth to. Stay curious when the answer disappoints you. Thank them for honesty. Let a conversation end without winning it. Safety is built in small moments that nobody applauds. I still make mistakes. Last Christmas, I started criticizing Daniel's travel plans. I saw his face close, and this time I caught myself. I said, "There I go again. You didn't ask for a risk report. Start over, and I'll listen." He smiled. We started over. My children call more often now, but that is not the only measure that matters. The calls are less careful. Claire tells me when she is confused. Daniel disagrees without disappearing. Sometimes they call Ruth and not me. I no longer treat that as a verdict. Love is not proven by equal minutes on a phone bill. At 72, I finally understood that providing for a family and being emotionally safe for a family are not the same achievement. Both matter. One cannot cancel the absence of the other. If there is someone you miss, begin with honesty, not pressure. Send the message that asks for nothing. Offer the apology that does not manage their response. Then practice becoming the person your words promised you would be. You cannot rewrite every conversation behind you, but you can change the feeling of the next one. If this story brought someone to mind, share in the comments one sentence you wish you had said sooner. And if you want more hard-earned wisdom for a life with fewer regrets, subscribe to Years Made Wise.